Good morning, and welcome back to Sunday Storytime here on Gaming with ADHD, where today we're reading Black Cats Cross Your Path by Tara Gallagher and James Lanigan, as found in Mechwarrior, the Battletech role-playing game, 2nd edition. Black Cats Cross Your Path. Falstaff sweats to death and lards the lean earth as he walks along. Henry IV, Part 1. Considering that a war is always on somewhere, things have been pretty quiet these days. It's nice to have a little rest time to train some new recruits and to work out a few new ideas, but only the battlefield can really keep you sharp. Big Bill Flynn, I say to myself, a man like you has got to keep fighting or he's going to turn into just another barroom mariner, always looking for a wedding guest to regale with a story. And there's nothing wrong with that, except that you've got to keep coming up with new stories. Every year should bring new tales, and last year was no exception. For instance, we got a job to protect Lawrence, this 4-bit semi-industrial town in the middle of nowhere. Some house jerk had a bee in his neuro helmet about one of those Star League parts depots being in or near the town, and the town was expecting a raid. I'm not saying the Black Cats are intolerably special, but there just aren't many mercenary infantry units. The life expectancy is too short. People hire you, then expect you to be dead when payday comes. Mostly, though, rich guys would rather hire a few nice-looking mechs than a bunch of normal-sized people. Makes them feel important. So we Black Cats mostly get jobs defending little cities. The nice thing is, these are people whose governments won't protect them with so-called real troops, and so they're happy to see us. To keep from going buggy, any infantry unit that lasts more than a year has to find creative ways to operate. So Boots, my boss, Sergeant Elizabeth Hill, is always trying newer and stranger ways to peel mechs. Some folks say this means she's already buggy, but it's just a way of keeping us together. They don't call her Boot Hill for nothing, you know. She's been boss for nearly 2 years, longer than most infantry units last. One of the nice things about being an infantry unit, maybe the only nice thing, is that the Tinker Boys, the mech drivers, don't take you seriously. So if you're a good infantry unit, you prove them wrong in fun and interesting ways. They're so humiliated. 'Tis sport indeed to see engineer hoisted on his own petard. And in Lawrence, we made those mechs look petarded. The raiders did indeed show up, and the locals went crazy, almost from the second those dropships were launched. The word was around town. Widows! The Black Widows! I'll admit, that made my stomach disappear for a few seconds. But then Boots snapped me back to the real world. If those were Black Widows, I'm Sirawan Karita, she announced. We were going to send a few cats over for a look-see, but our employers were not happy with our calm manner in the face of what they thought would be a particularly slow, agonizing death of their world. This is how Boots, Lu Ling, my little self, and a few new guys and local cops ended up creeping through the woods on a nasty cold night playing spies to look like we were earning our sea bills. A little acting is part of the job. Hell, a lot of acting if you count looking nonchalant while running around the feet of 60 tons of tippy metal. Freezing our triggers off is part of the job too, but not for no reason. I was just about to say so when we reached the camp. I'll met by moonlight, proud titans, I muttered. Wannabes, said Boots. We just dragged through nature's own cryonics lab for a bunch of widow wannabes. Then she explained to the locals that this group of no-talents had apparently painted spiders on their mech, either to confuse people and strike fear into their hearts, or because they just wanted to imitate the widows. The Widow Battalion would have wept, or more likely shot them all had they seen those clowns. There was only one company and some infantry that looked like hell. I hate dealing with guys like that. No challenge, no glory. They set up on the edge of town. We had walked 9 clicks out of the way thanks to the local city boys' sense of direction, obviously expecting to march in while the populace turned tail and fled. I like surprise parties. The next day, we reviewed probable routes that they would take into the city, then set up to meet them. Infantry has an advantage in a city, especially if we know our way around and the enemy don't. Small size works to a distinct advantage when you can squeeze into a tight spot and trap a big hulk. The big galoots did not appear in town that entire day. Boots said it was possible they were waiting for dark, but it was more likely they had put themselves in such an obvious location because they were hoping the townspeople would simply evacuate. Of course, it was also possible they were merely stupid and didn't have a clue. The next day, they finally got off their big cans, into their bigger cans, and headed into Lawrence. We met them at the edge of town and took some pot shots like any hometown militia in a sweat. Once we had their attention, Boots ordered a retreat and dispersed the squad into town. Boots and I, well, Boots actually, had decided to lure some mechs into this large industrial bakery. It was a maze of heavy machinery, vats, and conveyor belts. A good place to trap a mech while it tried to crunch its way out. Let them eat cake, we said. Once we had 2 fire teams into the bakery, Boots gets this very friendly look on her face. Bill, she says, how would you like to be the hero this afternoon? Well, I'd been the hero for Boots before, and it wasn't all it was cracked up to be. But she's the top kick in this outfit, so there's no odds in arguing. She sees the look on my face and says, have I ever shown you less than a good time? I decided not to answer that and found myself leading my fire team out the bakery's back door. The Raider mechs had already pushed past the bakery and were strolling into town. Working our way from doorway to doorway, we finally got within 50 meters of the 2 clumsy-looking buckets of bolts. Hi, girls, I said as we squeezed a few rockets at their tin behinds. We knew it wouldn't hurt them much. We just wanted their attention. We got it. They turned around, and in the words of the poet, all hell broke loose. Mechs don't see infantry men too well, thank God, but I would have given my kingdom, if I had one, for a horse. We were dodging and ducking and beating our feet back to the bakery. All I could think of was that Boots' surprise had better be good. We hit the door about 4 kilometers slower than the speed of light, with those 2 50-ton soup cans following as fast as they could. The minute we broke through, Boots waved us off to the right. The mech smashed clean through the wall about 2 heartbeats after we got out of their way, and I found some cover, then poked my head up. The 2 mechs were skating across the floor, trying to grab the walls with their cannons. They did some spins, nice pirouettes, crashed over and under a conveyor belt, one landing on top of the other, and slid on their bellies into a vat of lard. A geyser of lard poured over the mechs. Boots crawled up next to me. Nice touch, I told her. Can we leave now? Got a match, sailor? Boots said as she lifted her flamethrower. The lard burned beautifully. It smelled like all the mess halls in the galaxy at one shot. Now, she said, I think we better leave. We took cover in another building just as the ammo in the mechs cooked off. Oh, for a muse of fire, I sang out as the mechs crashed through the top of the building that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention. Watch out, Boots said, clapping me on the back. You might get what you're after.